Derrick Henry is the only running back, active player anywhere near the top 10. I mean, he's in the top 10, but there's no one else near. In fact, crazily as it is, the next best player is Josh Allen with 68 rushing touchdowns. He's 38th. It's not even a running back. All right. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL Top 10's for Friday. This is Ernie Jennings, your host, and this episode we're going to look at the Thursday night game. What a wild game. Pittsburgh's defense, which is usually good, was not tonight. And Cincinnati was able to come on and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 33-31. It was a pretty entertaining game. A lot of stats to look at, a lot of top 10s to look at for this tonight's game. So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at some all-time numbers as well going into this week, and some team stats. We'll see how much of that we get to in the next 25 to 30 minutes, and we'll play it by ear. You can tell I'm on vacation, so I'm in a bedroom, not in my normal office setting with my normal gear, but we'll do the best we can with what we got. So let's get this show on the road, and we're going to start with the game itself and talk about that. Like I said, Cincinnati Bengals pulled this game out 33-31, and there were some big games in here, specifically, Aaron Rodgers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase had quite a game, really a big game for him. So let's start with that. So looking at Jamar Chase, we're going to start with actually Aaron Rodgers. This was interesting to me and kind of ironic. Aaron Rodgers didn't need too many yards going into this game. In fact, he needed 105 yards to catch Ben Roethlisberger, of all people, for fifth place all time in the NFL in passing yards. So he plays for the Steelers his first year as a Steelers, and he's going to come in and break the greatest Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback probably of all time. And he did it. Rodgers had 249 yards, so Ben Roethlisberger had 64,088 yards in his career, put him fifth all-time in the NFL in passing yards. So with the 249 that Rodgers got, he now has 64,222 yards to move from sixth to fifth place all-time, now ahead of Ben Roethlisberger, all-time in the NFL in passing yards. Now, he won't catch Brett Favre, who's in fourth, or Peyton Manning in third. Those two are very close to each other, but they have over almost 72,000 yards. So Aaron Rodgers would have to play at least one more year to think about catching those two. So Ben Roethlisberger may be the only guy he catches as far as these all-time numbers go. But it was a big one. Fifth all-time in the NFL in passing yards is quite an accomplishment. Unfortunately, it was in a loss. All right, let's look at the Cincinnati Bengals. And we'll start with a smaller one. That's T. Higgins. T. Higgins had been tied for 8th place with Chris Collinsworth and Darnay Scott for most touchdown receptions, when that was with 36. He had one tonight in the game, puts him at 37, puts him in a tie with T.J. Houshmandzadeh, who played from 2001 to 2008. So they both now have 37. Next up for T. Higgins, who had a good game. Joe Flacco is making quite a difference for this team over Jake Browning. This could make this division very competitive. With this win by Cincinnati now, it's going to really tighten up this division. But next up for T. Higgins, is Eddie Brown with 41 touchdown passes. So see how many games it takes T. Higgins to catch him. All right, now on to the star of the game as far as records go, and that's Jamar Chase. He set he set one record, and he moved up the list of top 10s for the Cincinnati Bengals. So in yards, he went into the game in ninth all time in most yards receiving by a Cincinnati Bengal. He had 161 yards in this game, which pushed him all the way up to seventh. He passed Tyler Boyd and Darnay Scott to move into seventh. He now has 6,054 yards. Tyler Boyd had exactly 6,000, so he passed him and he passed Darnay Scott. Now, next up for him is also Eddie Brown, who's sixth all time. He played from 1985 to 1991. He has 6,134 yards. So next week, honestly, for the next game that the Bengals have, Chase could pass him because he's got 6,054. He only needs 80 yards to catch Eddie Brown. After that, it's going to be a little bit because Chris Collinsworth has almost 6,700 yards for fifth all time in Cincinnati Bengal history. But it's very possible that he catches him sometime this year as well, at the rate he's going. He's had quite an impressive career already. And again, when you put Joe Flacco in there, it just makes such a difference. He targeted him. He's got that quick, short pass. He did have a lot of catches, and we'll talk about that. 16 catches for 161 yards, so 10 yards a catch, which is basically what he had almost even a little less last week when he had 10 catches for 91 yards, I believe it was. But 16 catches. So let's talk about that then. So not only does he move up the list all-time receiving yards for the Cincinnati Bengals, but he also sets the record for the Cincinnati Bengals for most receptions in a game. He broke his own record. He had 15 receptions back in October of 2023 in a game with the Arizona Cardinals, which Cincinnati won 34-20. He had 15 catches for 192 yards. This game, he had 16. He broke his own record. 16 catches, and like I said, for 161 yards. So now he's got the top two spots, and he's tied for the third spot as well with 14. Now, it's incredible the career he's had so far. Like I said, 16 receptions. He broke his own record of 15. Also, with 16 receptions in a single game, it ties several people for ninth all-time in the NFL for most receptions in a single game. Somebody who's playing right now, Keenan Allen, had 16 receptions back in 2020. Now, Keenan Allen, as far as active players, still has the best number of any player on this all-time list of most catches in a single game. Keenan Allen had 18 receptions back in September of 2023 against the Minnesota Vikings. So he's got, as far as active players, he's got the highest total, and he's on this list twice. Pretty impressive. Now, Jamar Chase was here at 17th prior to getting the 16 receptions in a single game. So now, like I said, he's in the top 10 in receptions as well. So he's moving up all kinds of lists. You give him a little bit of time, and he'll be moving up all-time lists as far as yards, receptions, everything. He's such an incredible receiver. All right. Now, let's look at some other numbers outside of this game. That was quite a game, but we're going to move on and look at some other numbers going into this week. Now, Derrick Henry, for example, this is all-time numbers now we're talking about here. All-time NFL, Derrick Henry is tied with Walter Payton for fifth all-time in the NFL for most rushing touchdowns with 110. So he just needs one touchdown in his game this week, and he'll be fifth all-time by himself. Next up for him, which is going to take him probably the rest of the season, if he can do it this season, that is. It may take him early next season. And that's Adrian Peterson, who's in fourth with 120. Emmitt Smith is the all-time leader with 164. So it's going to take Derrick Henry a few years if he even has a chance at Emmitt Smith. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to hold out for that many years. I mean, it's 54. It's going to probably take him 4 years if he averages, a decent amount. So I don't know. That's a lot more years for Derrick Henry to play. But we'll see. And what's so interesting about this is Derrick Henry is the only running back, active player anywhere near the top 10. I mean, he's in the top 10, but there's no one else near. In fact, crazily as it is, the next best player is Josh Allen with 68 rushing touchdowns. He's 38th. It's not even a running back. It's Josh Allen. So that just tells you how great he's been in this era. There's no other running back quite like him as far as the numbers he's put up. So we'll just see how many more years he's got in him. All right, let's look at another player. And this is Davante Adams. He's also tied with a current player, and that's Mike Evans. They both have 106 receiving touchdowns apiece. So Davante Adams just needs one more to pass Mike Evans, and he will probably do it. He has a chance to do it because Mike Evans hasn't been playing for the Buccaneers. He's been hurt, giving Davante Adams not only the chance to catch him, but also to pass him to move into ninth all by himself. Now, next up for both Davante Adams and Mike Evans is Tony Gonzalez, who has 111. He played from 1997 to 2013, 111 touchdowns as a tight end. That's not even the most by a tight end. That's Antonio Gates, who played for the Chargers. He had 116 touchdown receptions as a tight end. Anyway, so Davante Adams just needs 5 to catch Tony Gonzalez. He may do it this year. It'd be tough for him to catch Antonio Gates. He needed another 10. Not impossible, but a little bit difficult. And I've talked about this before, but Davante Adams and Mike Evans both have 106 touchdowns, receptions. Both came into the league in 2014. When they're talking about total receptions, Davante Adams has more. Davante Adams is pushing in to become one of the elites as far as receptions. He's got 983. So he only needs 17 more to reach the 1,000 reception mark. There's only 16 players in NFL history that have 1,000 or more receptions. He's got 983. Mike Evans has 850. So they're fairly close. They're really close in yardage. Davante Adams has less, actually, with 12,240. Mike Evans, 12,824. So they're close there as well. It's just amazing how parallel their stats are. Another interesting thing is that Davante Adams has played for 4 teams already, while Mike Evans has been with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers his entire career. So Mike Evans, when you look at records for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he holds all the receiving records, receptions, yards, touchdowns. In fact, he's in the top 10 as far as points scored for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's how many points he's had as well. And that's what happens when you play for the same team for your entire career. But those two have very similar careers and great careers, actually. It's interesting how some players just are touchdown magnets, versus other players. Now, those two are in the top 10. DeAndre Hopkins is quite a ways back. He came in even a year earlier than they did, but he's got 85. He'd be the next one. He'll never catch those two. I don't see it. His career will be over before that. Interestingly, DeAndre Hopkins has more yards than either one of them, but just 21 touchdowns less than them, though. So a little bit difference in how they were used. And DeAndre Hopkins is another one who's been on 5 teams himself. You don't have many players anymore playing on one team their entire career. It's nice to see. It just doesn't happen that much anymore. All right, let's look at another stat here. Now this time we're going to move over to uh, some of the top 10s this season for teams. We'll start with looking at the most points scored this season. You would never have guessed it going into the season who that would be. I mean, you could have said Detroit Lions, obviously, and they're number 2 actually. It's the Indianapolis Colts. They lead the NFL in points scored with 194. Detroit Lions have 191. A little bit of a gap then to Dallas, who's in third with 178. So you've got these two teams, Indianapolis Colts and Detroit Lions. And the another thing about the Colts, not 5-1. I don't think anybody would have predicted that either. Now Detroit Lions are 4-2. Dallas is the third highest scoring team, and they got a losing record at the moment, 2-3-1. Otherwise, the top 6 teams all have winning records. In fact, it's not until you get to number 10, Baltimore, who has 144 points scored, who are 1-5. But yeah, the Colts are quite an impressive team so far this year. Daniel Jones has made a huge difference. Obviously, they already had good talent at wide receivers, and they have a great running back in Taylor. And they made the right decision in starting Jones for sure over Richardson. I don't even, they might have flip-flopped that record with Richardson in there, I think. He just wasn't ready to play as a starting quarterback yet. I don't know if he ever will be either. All right, now looking at the other end of this scale, the fewest points allowed so far, that's the Houston Texans, only allowed 61 points so far this season. Now that's in 5 games, but still, you're talking about 12 points a game. That's not much. Now Denver's second with 95. They've played 6 games, but still that's more per game. And then Minnesota 97, the only teams under 100 points allowed so far. And you can see it again. Every team except for Houston, Houston has had quite a terrible season, honestly, trying to score themselves, and they don't give up much, but they weren't able to score early on. They've started to try to make some effort to come back from bad play, and they've been looking better. But beyond Houston, all the next teams, it takes all the way down to 15th, the Arizona Cardinals, before you have a team, before you get to another team with a losing record. So when you don't allow points, you obviously have a much better chance to win, and generally that's true. Houston being the exception to the rule, but they're the only ones. All right. Another stat that often says something about a team, you would think, and is penalties. The New England Patriots are the most penalized team in the NFL right now with 53. Jacksonville Jaguars have 52, and the New Orleans Saints have 50. They're the only 3 teams with 50 or more penalties so far this season. Now, I know, watching all the Jaguar games closely, they've had a ton of penalties that weren't accepted. I mean, they'd even have more if they'd been accepted. But you would think that the penalties hurt, and they actually do. I think it could cost a team a game. But both the Patriots and the Jacksonville Jaguars are 4-2. New Orleans Saints, though, are 1-5. You do see, when you look at the top 10 here, you do see more teams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the top 10. So half of them do have losing records, and quite bad too. 2-4, 2-4. Dallas with 2-3-1, and then Tennessee Titans 1-5. So you got some bad teams in there. Penalties hurt. They just ruin, your drives that you're trying to make during a game. All right, look at another stat, and that's turnovers. Another big category here. Cincinnati Bengals, and this is one of the reasons they got Joe Flacco. They had to. Jake Browning was just throwing interceptions like it didn't matter at all. 3 a game type of deals. But Cincinnati and the Las Vegas Raiders, 11 turnovers. And also the same thing, Geno Smith, three interceptions in a single game twice. I mean, he's one of the top quarterbacks as far as most interceptions. So too many turnovers really hurt a team. And when you look at the top 4 teams, they have 11 and 10 turnovers, 2 and 4, 2 and 4, 1 and 5, 1 and 5. The only one that breaks this rule is next with 10 is San Francisco, who are 4 and 2. But otherwise, the amount of turnovers really hurt your team. It just makes it so difficult to win. All right. That's kind of a quick look. I wanted to get this out because of this game last night with between Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Exciting game, especially if you're a Cincinnati fan. It was in Cincinnati, so of course they went ecstatic when Cincinnati was able to pull it out with kicking the game-winning field goal with only 7 seconds left on the clock. Aaron Rodgers tried one of his Hail Marys at the end of the game. He's still got an arm for somebody who's 44. He threw it from about the 35-yard line into the end zone, but it was knocked down. Still can throw it 65 yards in the air. It was pretty impressive attempt to try to win the game on a long bomb, but it did not pan out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that division is getting much tighter. All right. Well, that's a quick look at things happening on this Friday. Hope you enjoy this podcast. If you like it, please subscribe. You can find it on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL. You can also find it on podcast sites, Apple, Spotify, whatever app you might use for your podcasts. You can also email me at justthestatsnfl@gmail.com if you'd like. Appreciate you listening. And that is a wrap for this episode of Just the Stats NFL Top 10s. I'm out.